So you want to know how to make a deep and emotional sounding melody in GarageBand iOS, and that's what we're going to be doing today, so let's jump straight into it. The first thing I'm going to do is load up a classical grand piano. I usually always start off my beats with this and then change it to later instrument. To another instrument, I mean. So now let's just pick a random note, let's say C sharp, and this is now going to be the root note of our song throughout. Next, I'm going to pick another note, let's go A. Next two notes I want to be part of the C sharp minor chord. So if you didn't already know, the C sharp minor chord is C, E, and G sharp. So these are root notes, and they sound very nice together. So now let's lay the chords on top of this. So C sharp minor, let's do A major, this would be E major. The last one would be G sharp minor. So this is our chord progression. It sounds pretty nice now, but to make it even better, I'm gonna take all the notes by selecting all of them, copying and paste it. I'm gonna reduce it down 2 octaves. Just the C1 octave. It has a much deeper feel now, which gives it that deep sense. I'm gonna reduce the velocity right now because it's too high. Another thing I'm gonna do is, I didn't like this last chord, so I'm gonna reduce the top notes down 1 octave, bring it down from E flat to here. So it sounds like this now. One last thing I'm gonna do to this chord by manipulating it is take all the middle notes and lift them up an octave. A trick for these melodies is make them as spaced out as possible to give them that emotional feel. So now let's lay a counter melody on top of this. So you already know the counter melodies are quite nice if they're made out of the chords themselves. So let's make a melody now. I'm gonna go C sharp, G sharp, and E. But we don't necessarily need to make all the notes out of the chords. It just sounds better if it starts off like that, or one part of it is. Then I wanted to have a little roll on top here. I like that so far. And also another thing I like to do is, if it's very simple, then I like to, I'll show you what I mean. Let's just make the melody and I'll show you the trick afterwards. Also another thing with these emotional type beats is if you make the scale run down, it sounds pretty cool. So let's do that now. And I'm gonna make some syncopation and melody out of this. So something like this. And then I'm gonna bring it back up, just what sounds good. So something like this. Just a little roll down here as well. Just running down the scale. The trick that I told you at the start is to make these notes clash in with the previous ones. So a little trill, it's called in music. So just something like this. If there's too long of a pause, then you can put these little trills in there to make it sound even better. So I don't want too much of that right now because the thing's already pretty complex. I'm also gonna put one over here, not too much, otherwise it's just gonna be too complicated. Just one last one. Remember to stay in the C sharp minor scale. I'm gonna move this up, I don't know why I put it there. One last thing is, I didn't like this roll going down, so I'm just gonna keep it as it is, down here. I'm gonna copy it into the next section, join. And if you've seen my videos before, you know that I like to transpose the root note down 4 semitones for the second part. So that's 4. So now this is what it sounds like, the root notes. That doesn't sound completely right. Actually, there was nothing wrong, it's just fine as it is. This is the first chord. And this is what it sounds like in the second part. I'm also gonna move this down. I'm gonna see if this works, I'm not sure. Okay, that sounds okay, but I'm gonna copy it and bring it back to the thing it was. So I'm gonna bring it back to E. Yep, that sounds fine, just that I'm gonna reduce the velocity of quite a few of these, otherwise there's too many chords and makes it quite loud. So that sounds fine now. So this is the melody currently, but don't leave just yet because I'm gonna switch it to a different instrument and do a little bit of layering with it. So what I did is I found this instrument called the metallic bell omnisphere. I just copied the whole melody over and I layered it with the piano. But I don't want to change the piano too much because it already sounds pretty nice, right? So what it sounds like altogether, I reduced the volume of the bell because I don't want it to be too prominent in the mix. What I'm gonna do now is copy only the melody from the classical grand and drag that into another instrument. So let's do that now. So basically what I did is I just made a little difference over here towards the end of the bar. Instead of just having these two notes play, I brought it up to the first one. And also for the start, I brought a little note in here, but I reduced the velocity quite a bit. I don't want it to be too prominent in the mix. So that's going to be the foundation of the melody of our song. Now I'm going to add a bit of reverb and effects to the flute and grand piano to make it even more spacey in the mix. So just some basic EQs for all of them. I put in a little bit of reverb on the flute, and I'm just going to put a little more on the piano as well, just to give it a more airy vibe. Now let's add in some drums. But don't leave yet, you already know what the melody is. If I add some drums, it's just going to be an absolute banger. So let's just add something in. Clap. I'm going to drag this in every 3 counts. Copy it into the next section. So I basically just adjusted the volumes of them a little bit. Now let's add in the hi-hats. If you want any specific tutorials, then a link will be in the description. I just switched the clap with another one because the original one wasn't just tight enough. I'm going to put some rolls in the hi-hats now. Just a simple 16th note at the start. The melody is already pretty complicated, so I'm going to keep the hi-hats real simple because we don't want to be overcomplicating the beat. I'm just going to copy that pattern, reduce the velocity a little bit because it's too high, and copy it into the last bar and put it to a higher pitch this time. And that's the hi-hat pattern now. Let's add in a snare. I'm going to take the south side classical snare. It sounds like this. It has a little effect towards the end of it. Just makes it stop and hit a lot harder. Snare over here. I'm just gonna copy that into the next section. So this is what we have right now. Wait, is the first clap a little bit off? Yeah. So this is it. And I'm gonna put in the 808s. So if you remember, I think the root notes were C, A, E, and G sharp. C sharp, I mean. Little 808 bounce over here. I'm not gonna let the last 808 hit on the bar. I'm gonna spread it out a little bit for tension. So this is the 808 pattern. Pitched up, I'm gonna pitch it down. I'm gonna put it like this. Yep, and I'm gonna pitch it down. So I'm gonna copy that into the next section. This is what we have so far. I'm gonna EQ it and add a kick to it. So this is the kick pattern. I spaced it out quite a bit because I don't want it clashing with the 808s too much, just for a little bit more bounce. It's like this. Yeah, so now let's add in an open hat. I don't want the open hat pattern to be extremely repetitive, so I put an open hat over here and I'm going to copy it into here. So that's going to be the open hat pattern. So like this. I'm gonna change the kick because it's distorting too much. So I changed it to another kick so it hits even harder now. And I'm gonna add in a perk. A rim shot here is my perk. I'm gonna put it in a place where there aren't too many instruments playing, otherwise the beat's just gonna sound too complicated. In this area, there's doesn't seem to be much playing, so I'm gonna put it over here. I'm just gonna copy that into these sections. That sounds a bit random. I'm gonna change it a little bit. So I'm just gonna copy this into this area and I'm gonna delete this. So this is gonna be the rim shot pattern. There seems to be a little too much going over here. Yeah, there's quite a few instruments playing on over here, so I'm gonna take out this open hat and place it over here instead. Yeah, that sounds better. Yeah, that's gonna be our open hat pattern, and that's the beat done. I'm gonna arrange it and show you the final outcome. Thanks for watching around to the end. So basically what I did is I put a drop before the second hook, some ambience, and a riser for the intros. This is the final product. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and leave a comment. It does help the video. See you next time.